Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're digging into a whole load of insights from a pretty long conversation with Naval Ravikant.
Right.
And if you know his stuff, you know he's got this really sharp, sometimes counterintuitive take on things.
Mm.
And here, he's really grappling with some, what he calls harsh truths
Mm.
about us, about human nature.
Yeah, it's quite a collection. We're talking happiness, success, how our minds work, or maybe don't work the way we think, big decisions, lots of stuff.
It's dense,
Yeah.
but really, really illuminating.
Absolutely.
And our mission, like always, is to take all this, kind of cut through the noise, pull out the main ideas, the surprising bits, the things that make you stop and go, huh.
We're basically your guides through his way of thinking on this, trying to help you get a quick handle on what matters most and, how it might click with your own life.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe. So you don't have to wade through hours of material yourself to grapple with these, well, sometimes pretty powerful ideas.
Sometimes uncomfortable ideas, too.
Yeah, that too. Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yes.
What jumps out right away, I think, is how much it kind of pushes back against the usual stories we tell ourselves about, what drives us, what makes us happy.
Definitely. And he starts with this fundamental tension, almost a paradox, between happiness and success.
Right. Happiness, he says, is, in a way, being okay with what you have right now. Satisfied.
Uh-huh. Whereas success pretty much needs you to be dissatisfied, right? You want something you don't have yet, you got to strive for it.
And the source points out, historically, there have been sort of two main paths people took towards what they thought was happiness.
One's the obvious one, isn't it? Go out, achieve stuff, get what you want, satisfy those material desires. Success leads to happiness. That's the standard model.
And the other path, more ancient philosophy kind of thing, like Diogenes, right?
Exactly. The path of just not wanting things in the first place, not needing all that external stuff.
Like Socrates in the marketplace, looking around saying, wow, look at all this stuff I don't need.
Or Alexander the Great meets Diogenes in his barrel, asks if he can do anything for him.
And Diogenes just goes, yeah, move. You're blocking my son.
Right. And the source notes it's telling that Alexander, the most powerful man maybe, wished he had that kind of peace.
So the common wisdom is, okay, if you're happy, satisfied, you won't be driven. You won't achieve much. Why bother?
But here's the twist he introduces.
Go on.
The argument is, as you actually become genuinely happier, calmer, more present, really satisfied, you don't just stop doing things. You still want to act, to do things in the world, but what you want to do changes. The motivation shifts.
How so?
It's less about filling some void, that dissatisfaction hole, and more about doing bigger things, maybe purer things that feel more aligned with who you are.
Okay. So becoming genuinely happier could actually make you more effective, more successful.
Potentially, yeah. But your definition of what success is will probably change quite dramatically along the way.
That's a big shift in thinking.
Yeah.
It really makes you pause and consider, doesn't it? Like, for yourself, is your definition of success changing as you get older? Maybe find a bit more contentment.
Good question. And shifting gears slightly, the source talks a lot about the journey itself, not just the end goal, and the role suffering plays.
Right, and suffering here, he's mostly talking about mental stuff, yeah. Not like physical pain.
Exactly. It's that mental anguish, that internal friction, the feeling you get when you just really, really don't want to be doing what you're doing right now.
Okay.
And the idea, which I find really compelling, is that the journey, it isn't just part of the fun. It is the fun. It's the only thing that's really real.
Which is so different from how many successful people look back. Yeah. Always wishing they'd enjoyed the process more.
Totally. And he gives this thought exercise. It's pretty powerful. Imagine going back, say, 5, 10, 20 years. You know only what you know now about your own personality, your temperament, how you react to things at that age. What advice would you give that younger you?
Interesting. What's his conclusion?
It's fascinating. He thinks he'd tell his younger self, do everything exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah, but with way less anger, less emotional drama, less of that internal suffering.
Because,
he argues, most of it was optional. It wasn't necessary for the outcome.
Okay, I see. Someone who's calm, maybe even happy, doing a tough job, is probably going to be better at it than someone who's just tearing themselves up inside.
Precisely. Avoid those miserable successes, as he puts it.
Makes you think, doesn't it? About hard times you went through. Was all that internal angst actually necessary? Or could you have handled it differently? with less struggle inside.
Yeah. And this connects really well to what he calls the desire loop.
Ah, okay. Tell me about the desire loop.
It's this cycle he sees. Pretty common human thing. You start off bored, maybe, then you decide you want something, and crucially, you decide you won't be happy until you get it.
Right, the classic, I'll be happy when.
Exactly. So that creates this period of striving, maybe suffering, anticipation. Then, okay, you get the thing,
And then?
and then you get used to it.
Yeah.
Hedonic adaptation, right. And pretty soon, you're back where you started, bored, looking for the next thing to want.
He mentions that study too, doesn't he, about big life events.
Yeah, though he's careful, says psych studies, replication issues sometimes.
Right, always a caveat.
But the finding was, basically, whether it's winning the lottery or, having a terrible accident, people's happiness levels tend to drift back to their baseline within a couple of years.
Wow, that's sobering.
It is. Now, he's clear, money isn't irrelevant. Money absolutely solves your money problem.
Sure, big difference.
And he makes a distinction. If you earned the money, the pride, the confidence from that process, that can stick around, unlike just, say, winning it.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you get off this desire loop, this sort of hamster wheel?
Well, the advice is almost deceptively simple. Choose your desires.
Choose them.
Yeah. Realize how many desires we just sort of pick up from ads, from society, from keeping up with the Joneses. They're unnecessary baggage a lot of the time. And if you know that wanting something is basically signing a contract to be unhappy until you get it, well, it makes you really picky, doesn't it?
Well, it should.
And he links this back to success, too. To be really good at something, you have to choose. You have to focus. You can't want everything and be great at anything specific.
So take a moment, listener. Think about it. What desires might you be carrying around that aren't really yours, that you just absorbed? And how could being more choosy maybe free up some energy?
Should prompt. Now, beyond these internal desire mechanics, he also talks about the external games we play, specifically status versus wealth creation.
Okay, status games versus wealth creation. How does he define them?
Status games, he says, are fundamentally zero-sum, limited. It's a ranking, a ladder. For you to go up, someone else often has to be below you or go down.
Right, there's only one top spot or a limited number.
And he thinks this has evolutionary roots. Makes sense in a small tribe with scarce resources, right? High status meant you ate first.
Makes sense. And wealth creation.
That he frames as positive sum. It's about creating abundance, building things, providing value. If you make something truly useful, lots of people can benefit. Value is created for everyone.
So not taking from a fixed pie, but making more pies.
Exactly. And here's a key insight. He says status is almost impossible to feel done with.
What do you mean?
You can reach a point where you feel like, okay, I have enough money, I'm comfortable. But status, people almost always want more.
Ah, I see. Like leaderboards, charts.
Social media metrics, likes, followers, comments, it keeps you on that treadmill, constantly seeking more validation, more status.
Yeah, you see that everywhere. And this connects to that idea, I think it was Jimmy Carr who said it, that trajectory matters more than position.
Yes. Losing ground, decelerating feels way worse than just being lowered down but moving up. It's apparently hardwired in us not to lose what we have, loss aversion.
So worth reflecting on for yourself. Where are you playing status games? Maybe without realizing it. And how does that feel compared to areas where you're maybe creating actual value, baking those pies, which feels more sustainable?
Good questions. Okay, so if those are the external games, what
Right.
about the internal ones? He digs into self-esteem and authenticity
Okay.
next.
The inner game. What's his take on self-esteem?
Well, he paints low self-esteem as a really tough spot. If you're battling yourself inside, the whole outside world just feels overwhelming. He sort of speculates it might often trace back to childhood, maybe not feeling unconditionally loved.
That's heavy. But how does he define self-esteem itself?
It's basically the reputation you have with yourself.
Okay.
It comes from watching yourself, observing your own actions, and seeing if you're actually living up to your own internal code, your own morals.
Earned internally. How do you build it then?
Two main ways he highlights. One is just rigorously living up to your code, doing the right thing as you define it, even when it's hard.
Okay. And the second?
Doing things for others, sacrifice, duty. But he's specific. True sacrifice, where it actually costs you something, not just giving up something you wanted less for something you wanted more.
Ah, okay. There's a genuine cost involved.
Right. And the pride comes from that alignment between your values and your actions, especially when it's difficult.
And how does this link to authenticity?
Well, he argues the world lacks authenticity because so many people are trying to project an image, trying to be seen as something they're not, usually to gain status or approval.
The faking it till you make it thing?
Maybe, but he suggests people have really sensitive bullshit radars. We can usually tell when someone's not being genuine.
Yeah, you can often feel it.
And the trap of faking it, especially for status, if you get stuck, you end up kind of living in this hall of mirrors, constantly performing, puppeting this persona that isn't really you, both for others and eventually even for yourself.
That sounds exhausting. So listener, how's your internal reputation, your self-esteem, and where do you feel that pressure maybe to put on the front instead of just being you?
Yeah. Let's go even deeper now. Into the mind itself. Problems, control. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this part was fascinating. He makes this pretty radical point, right? That most problems out there in the world only become your problems once they get inside your head.
Exactly. It's how you view it, how you interpret it, the story you spin around it. That's what makes it a problem for you.
So the solution involves observing your mind.
Pretty much. Practices like meditation, therapy, journaling, even just long walks. Anything that creates a bit of space between you, the observer, and your mind, the thought generator.
So you can look at your thoughts more objectively, like, is this thought actually true? Is it helpful? Almost like listening to someone else talk.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And once you can do that, here's the kicker. You can actually be choosy about your problems.
Choosy about problems. What does that mean?
He argues we waste so much emotional energy just automatically reacting to everything our mind flags as a problem. But you don't have to accept all those flags. You don't need all those problems. Maybe just focus on one big one you really care about solving.
That sounds liberating, actually.
Yeah.
It connects to indifference, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That Stoic idea.
absolutely. Cultivating indifference towards things you genuinely cannot control. That's a path to peace, he suggests.
Yeah.
Think about doom scrolling online.
Oh, yeah.
Getting all worked up about global events, political fights,
Right.
things you have zero influence over in that moment. That's a choice, even if it doesn't feel like one.
He calls the media a delivery system for mimetic viruses.
Yeah. Ideas, problems, anxieties from faraway wars, climate change, AI taking over, political outrage that infect your mind, often exaggerated, often things you can do nothing about, and they just consume your attention.
Right, which he says is your real currency. We'll get back to that.
And he throws out this challenge, too, about trying to fix the world when your own house isn't in order.
Like your family life is a mess, but you're going to solve global poverty.
Kind of, yeah. Questioning the credibility of people offering grand solutions when their own lives seem chaotic. It echoes that line, if the rule you followed brought you to this, of what use was the rule?
Powerful stuff. So ask yourself, what problems are taking up space in your head that might just be narratives? Where are you leaking emotional energy on things you can't control?
Okay, so from understanding our inner world, the source then tackles the really thorny issue of change. Changing ourselves and trying to change others.
Ah, yes. And here's another one of those harsh truths, isn't it? You basically can't change other people.
Pretty much. Full stop. People change, he argues, only through significant trauma or their own deep insight. And always on their own schedule.
Not when you tell them to.
Definitely not. Telling someone to change is usually the fastest way to make them dig their heels in. What you can change, though, is yourself and how you react to them.
But you can influence behavior. Right. He talks about that.
Yes, but maybe not how you'd think. The effective way, he suggests, is to genuinely compliment the behavior you want to see more of.
Not criticize the stuff you don't like.
Right. Focus on the positive, but it has to be genuine praise. He mentions Dale Carnegie's approach to feedback only gives sincere appreciation. Or that language learning method, Michelle Thomas, where less pressure actually helps learning. Passive observation works better sometimes.
That's really interesting in relationships, isn't it? The trap of loving someone's potential.
Huge trap. Loving the idea of who they could be instead of who they are right now. That's wishful thinking overriding judgment, he says, and it keeps you stuck. You're waiting for someone who might never show up.
Oof, yeah. So where in your life are you trying to change someone else?
Yeah.
What if you shifted that energy to managing your own reactions? Or trying some genuine positive reinforcement instead?
Worth trying. Okay, so navigating all this requires making choices, often big ones. And he offers some very practical, if tough, rules of thumb for decision-making, heuristics.
Yeah, I liked these. What's the first one?
If you really can't decide between two options, the answer is probably no.
No. Why?
Especially for big changes or new things. That deep uncertainty is often a signal that neither path is quite right for you right now. Your gut is telling you something.
Okay, makes sense. What's number 2?
If you have two choices that seem pretty equal, take the path that involves more pain in the short term.
Ouch. Why?
Because our brains are wired to massively overestimate immediate pain and discomfort. So the harder path now might actually be the better long-term bet. Like Nassim Taleb's idea about trusting the surgeon whose office is a bit messy, they've probably been doing more real hard work.
Right, prioritizing substance over surface.
Yeah.
Okay, and the third heuristic.
This one he credits to Kapagupta. Choose the option that will leave you more equanimous in the long run.
Equanimous, meaning?
More peaceful, less internal chatter, more at ease with yourself and the decision down the line. Which choice leads to less mental turbulence later?
That's a great filter. And he stresses focusing this decision-making energy on the really big things early on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the big three. Who you're with, what you're doing, your work, your path, and where you live. He points out that people often just kind of drift into these massive life choices without really thinking consciously.
That's so true. And for relationships, he emphasizes values alignment over checklists, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Shared core values, the non-negotiables, are way more important for long-term success than superficial stuff. That shared foundation is key.
And a huge part of making big decisions, taking risks, is being willing to start over.
Oh yeah, he calls that the hardest thing, going from 0 to 1 again after you've already built something.
Why is it so hard?
Pride, mostly. Loss aversion. Being willing to look like a beginner again, maybe even a fool. Overcoming that fear of losing what you have. He points to great artists, great entrepreneurs, Paul Simon, Madonna, Elon Musk betting his PayPal money on SpaceX and Tesla. They had that ability to reinvent, to risk it all again.
Wow. So listener, think about a decision you're facing. Could these heuristics help? Where are you maybe avoiding short-term pain? Or letting pride or fear of loss keep you stuck?
Good stuff to ponder. Okay, bringing us towards the home stretch here, he makes a really fundamental point about our ultimate resource. Not money, not even time.
But attention.
Attention, that's the real currency, he argues. Money can buy some things, maybe save you time, but it can't buy you more time. And time itself is kind of useless if your attention isn't on it, if you're not present.
Yeah, that hits home. Which loops back to the media thing, right?
Exactly. Spending your attention on the news, on outrage feeds, that's spending your most valuable, non-renewable resource. Be aware of the cost. It's fine if it's something you genuinely care about and can maybe influence, but recognize that desire contract. You're choosing to be unhappy until this external thing changes, which is often out of your control.
And he uses this idea of attention when talking about dealing with the past too, right? Like a tough childhood.
Yeah. The goal of processing that stuff isn't to dwell on it forever or make it your whole identity. It's to understand it, integrate it, and then get rid of it as an active drain on your attention.
Like cutting the Gordian knot.
Exactly. At some point, you get tired of trying to untangle every single thread of your history. You just have to cut it. Sever the unhealthy relationship with your own past so you can focus your precious attention on what you want to build now.
So really pay attention to where your attention's going. Is it stuck in the past? Is it getting hijacked by external problems you can't fix? Or is it focused where it matters on what you value, what you can impact right here, right now?
That seems to be the core challenge. So wrapping up this deep dive, navigating all these harsh truths we've discussed about desire, status, suffering, the mind's tricks, the value of attention, it's clearly not about finding some easy formula for perfect happiness.
No, it doesn't seem like that's the goal. It's more about, well, maybe understanding ourselves and how we fit into the world a little better, even if that understanding is sometimes uncomfortable.
Right. It feels like the path he's outlining is towards living more intentionally, more authentically, based on understanding you've actually earned through experience and reflection, not just, following the crowd or believing conventional wisdom without questioning it.
Finding fulfillment that way, perhaps, rather than chasing an illusion.
Maybe so.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, the listener, building on that last point. If attention truly is your most fundamental resource, what is one specific thing you will consciously choose to focus your attention on? Or maybe, even more powerfully, what's one thing you'll consciously choose to stop focusing your attention on starting today?
Something to really chew on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.